Now, as we stumble into what is bye week for a number of clubs, well, we're not taking a bye. We're going to stick with you. It's the Titus and Sergio Variety Hour for this week. I'm Sergio Paradise, and I'm joined by a bloke who's just snuck back into the country from Bali very quietly. It's Titus O'Reilly.
I had all this media at the airport. It was lovely.
There was thousands of people there to see you. Just get off the plane from Denpasar.
Oh, it's such a circus. I almost don't want to devote any time to it because just
No,
everyone else is in a way. But
the only thing that made me laugh is when you've got the media circus reporting that there is a media circus about the media circus, and there's not much else to say about it.
I know, it is just crazy.
It is nuts. We're not even going to say who we're talking about, but I think you all know. Big week of footy, big weekend again.
Oh, we should now. On that. Before we start, thanks again to our supporters.
Absolutely, they keep coming in.
They are who bring us this podcast.
They do.
So it's their fault. But you can join up and become a supporter at titusoreilly.com. You can support this podcast and all our writing, our ability to put together on shows, all sorts of things. So thanks to everyone who's joined and become a supporter. And just head to the website if you too are interested in joining up. Colin Rouston wrote in on the back of the week we just had.
Yep.
With Richmond, Collingwood and Melbourne all winning on the weekend and giving you no reason to bag them, is there any need to have a podcast this week?
He might be onto something.
Well, I read that, so thanks everyone for tuning in.
Yeah, there you go.
It did make it hard yards to come up with stuff this week.
A minute 36, there you go. That's money well spent.
Although Richmond, Collingwood and Melbourne, even in winning, they usually leave you a little something to have a go at them.
It's never that clean cut.
We'll struggle through.
Yeah, we'll bet on.
And luckily for us, Fremantle stepped in to fill the... Did you see this game?
I didn't see this game, but I saw the scores, obviously.
Oh.
They must have been just appalling. Because they've been pretty good lately. I mean, they're still sitting up in the 8. And they've been winning.
It. Yeah, I know.
What happened?
It was one of the worst performances I can remember seeing. It poured in the first
by any
quarter.
Team.
That Fremantle looked... Imagine if a group of people were made to play against their will.
Yep.
That's what it looked like. They were just so disinterested.
Yeah,
They're about as interested as I am in meeting new people. That was about the level.
I'm not usually big on the phrase, they came to play, or they didn't come to play.
Yeah, they didn't show up.
But obviously they didn't come to play.
Oh, they were terrible. It was just... They didn't defend. There was bits where they were just... They all seemed to not break out of a slow jog the whole game. You know, it was that sort of thing. Meanwhile, Adelaide looked amazing, and Adelaide have put 140 points on people before.
Yeah.
And this is the thing I don't get, though. Ross Lyon's meant to be a defensive genius. And they scored 143 points be put on them while not breaking 50 points.
Yeah, and I think it's the biggest loss of Ross Lyon's coaching career. He's never been beaten by 100 points before. So,
Fife actually had 13 clangers, which is a record.
That's not bad, is it?
That's an equal record of all time.
That's getting into Lyndon Dunn territory.
Lyndon, Heath Shaw
was pretty good.
Has one of shares that record with him, and with Fife now, and he also gave away 6 free kicks.
Was he trying to reduce his price at the end of the season when he's a free agent?
Well, the thing is, you can kind of understand having 13 clangers when your teammates are also actively working against you is sort of not his fault completely.
I was about to say, we can't point the finger squarely at Fife for
well,
a poor
considering
game.
He was the only Freo player who looked like getting the ball at any point in the entire game. It was... Crows fans just couldn't believe it. They just, after playing Brisbane more recently, they've had a bit of an easy few weeks after not being very good.
Well, I'll tell you what, I was being facetious about Fife before, about dropping his price, but that sort of performance by his team and teammates is not going to do them any favours in wanting to keep him.
Oh, no.
Because he made it sort of very clear, without coming out and saying it directly, that he'll decide at the end of the season pretty much to see how Freo are going, and if they're going to be a power again, he'll stay, and if they're not, he might be on the way out.
Well,
that's not going to help them.
Perth FM Breakfast Radio's already got him going to St Kilda, don't they?
Yeah, they did. They had that a while back.
but after the way St Kilda played on the weekend,
anyone could be a chance.
In fact, where would you pick out of all the way the teams are playing this year? It's sort of they're all over the shop.
Oh yeah, it would simply just have to be a money-based decision. You know,
that's out. What is there another way to make a decision in the AFL?
Well, that's true. That's true.
This season feels a bit like one of those years where, so for the past sort of considerably 5-6 plus years, you've had Hawthorn, Geelong, and Sydney basically dominate the league.
Yeah,
and you could almost base your tips around some of that. And then you've had a few that were like the Melbournes, for example, who were just so poor you could almost. You pick up a free.
You just write them off.
You get a tip every week.
Brisbane.
If you wrote them off every week, you were guaranteed to get about 20 right over the season of them right. So that was sort of the way it was working. And this year's sort of a weird year. It's almost like past performance has, no bearing on future performance.
Last year by pinching the flag.
Well, they certainly did.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, though, it's, you had this week, we had a few things. We had a few miracles happen this week.
Miracles?
Oh, footy miracles.
Footy miracles.
Sure. Collingwood won 2 in a row.
Back to back. Side by side.
They had first time since round 15-16 last year.
Okay.
So it's been a while since they've managed to do that. Mainly because they're not very good.
Yeah.
I mean, that's my footy analysis brain kicking in there. So they managed to do that.
And they got Jamie Elliott back. And he's a terrific player, Jamie Elliott. But he's a bit happy with himself, don't you reckon?
Well, that haircut.
The haircut, the tough stickers, he's got it all going on. But he's been kicking goals ever since he came back, so you can't sort of bag him too much.
He's an excellent player, but he's been, that haircut just sort of is what's wrong with the younger generation, Serge. It's why I worry about the future, older blokes, they've got sensible hair, blokes like Donald Trump, and they make you feel safe. But so we had Collingwood win 2 in a row, which hasn't happened for a long, long time. And I think it's sort of, I felt for it because did you watch that one?
Didn't see much of that one. I only saw a handful. Well, not even probably a handful of games this week. I missed. I caught bits of most games, but didn't really. The only one I really saw from go to woe was the Thursday night game, the Geelong game.
Yeah.
But the rest, I didn't see much of the Collingwood game. Didn't see much of the Richmond, the dream time at the G. I was out, so so I didn't see much. I'm sort of being led by you on the.
It's lucky
the superb football analysis.
It's lucky you don't do a footy podcast on Mondays.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
actually, you do 2 on a Monday.
I've got to do another one after
this. You do the Melbourne one as well.
I didn't see much of that game
either. So anyway, Collingwood looked like they were getting it done easily, and then in the third quarter, they really.
Who were they playing again?
Collingwood were playing Brisbane.
That's right.
So Brisbane in the third started to look like they were actually getting their act together.
And you're not expecting that from Brisbane.
No, well, the thing here, Buckley basically was given. The worst thing is when people don't rate you at work.
Yeah.
And then they give you a really easy job to do. You can't stuff the easy job up because you've stuffed up all the others. So if you stuff this one up, there's really nowhere else for you to go.
Yeah.
And so I felt like with Buckley in this one, like he got no benefit out of winning, right?
Yeah.
Like it was you have to win.
He had to win. It was expected to win.
Brisbane got a percentage of 64. So you have to beat Brisbane, right? Yeah. They're terrible. And in the third, when Brisbane started to show a bit of run and a bit of started to look actually like they could be in here, it never quite got to the point. It got close, but not quite to the point where you thought, they're going to run over the top. But it got to the point where it was starting to get uncomfortable. I was thinking, this is going to be.
Here we go.
Here's the week taken care of.
Yeah.
And then Collingwood steadied and said they still can't kick straight. They're kicking for goals.
They still won by seven goals. But
but it's Brisbane. I mean, Brisbane really are
got to
not good.
Goals.
No,
they're terrible.
So And they had Rockcliffe out.
Yeah.
So Beams was back and was good, but they had Rockcliffe out. So they were on the go. So that was one moment where I thought also, so there's a miracle there. Collingwood winning 2 in a row.
Yep.
And they might be able to do it again this year. Who knows? But they've got a false sense of security after winning 2 in a row. Then Richmond didn't lose.
Well,
this was
that's
dream time at the G, Serge.
I was checking this, as I say, I was out, but I was checking it on my phone.
Yeah.
And it was all set up at 3/4 time to go right down to the wire and be another heartbreaking loss for Richmond. And the people I was with, we were all laughing and hoping that this would happen.
Cruel man.
But then as it went on, it got, the lead changed a couple of times. And then somebody pulled out their phone and said, it's a 28-minute mark, Richmond by 15 points. And we're like, that's a shame.
You weren't like, Essendon going to win.
No, we were just disappointed that Richmond hadn't blown it again.
Well, you can score. It takes 20 seconds to score on Richmond in the closing moment.
So theoretically, they had time for those 3 goals.
Oh, and put percentage on. That's really what the thing is. The question needs to be, how did Essendon let that get away? They should have really closed it out from there. That got very close. That one was really... I still don't think Essendon are that good.
No, I don't think so. Essendon...
They had a couple of good games, but they weren't against amazing sides.
I reckon the reason people talk up Essendon a bit is that when they do play well, they play that style of game that looks really good.
Yeah.
It makes them look better than they actually really are.
Yeah.
But then when they fall over, they do tend to fall over. And I still reckon that the second half of the season, they're going to be gradually become easy beats like Brisbane.
They've got some really good young talented players.
Yeah.
Like I think Joe Dana is, I've always said this. I've always said this.
Yeah, I know.
His goal kicking accuracy is a real bonus for him.
Yeah, you've always you've been strong on that from day one.
So, but Richmond still don't really impress me a lot. I mean, you take Dustin Martin out of that side, who has been playing just amazing football this year, and
I don't reckon he's had what's it, round 10. I don't reckon he's had a dud game yet.
Yeah, I think he's had a couple of quiet games, which is the most you
by
can
his standards. But he's putting together a season and a half. Martin. So
you take but I mean. The thing about Richmond is I kind of felt like they had to finally win sometime. Like one of them had to go their way. And the thing is, it's very Richmond like this because they give you hope. So they gave a lot of hope over the first 5 weeks.
Yep.
And then they just dashed the Tigers fans cruelly and brutally over the last couple of weeks, 3 weeks or whatever it's been. Just removed all hope.
Yep.
And they know that to dash hope again, you've got to raise it back up. Because you can't dash hope where there is none, right?
Which is what they've done by beating Essendon.
So by beating Essendon in a way, people start to go, well, maybe that bit of the game is fixed.
Yeah, and
maybe they're not as bad as we all thought they were.
And maybe that was just bad luck that we lost those 3 games by less than a goal.
Although Tigers fans know deep in their heart that they're like, life is cruel.
They like us Melbourne supporters. They'll always look at things with a jaundiced, glass half empty sort of attitude.
They've seen life.
Yeah. And they know it's cruel and unfair.
They know that there's no...
From birth through to death, there's nothing surer.
There's no happiness for us here.
No. Not in this life or any beyond.
And we probably even lose. Even in heaven.
Richmond can't buy a win.
Richmond won't win and neither will... Well, the Demons definitely won't. We picked a bad one there to back.
You can see the Tigers en masse at the pearly gates, couldn't you? Over gate 9.
Cotcham will probably pick the wrong way to go. We've ended up in hell. They wouldn't notice the difference, really. The other miracle, so one miracle Richmond doesn't lose.
Collingwood 2 in a row.
Collingwood managed to pull together 2 wins in a row, which just shows you how good they are. And miracle number 3, Serge. North Melbourne don't give up a lead.
Oh, is that right? Because, I mean, they've been hopeless at that this year.
Well, 3 times they've lost games by less than 5 points
after
when being up front by 5 goals.
Yeah. They nearly lost to Melbourne in the same scenario.
I stole that from somewhere.
That is a good stat.
Just facts. It's hashtags footy facts.
It's nearly as good as 5's 13 clangers.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know where you picked that one from.
Imagine if they track clangers. I think I saw it it was on a lot of the news this week. Yeah. But imagine if they tracked, imagine working in a place where your stats of mucking up were kept so accurately. Like, no one, imagine that you were like in accounting.
I was just about to say, how about ringing
marketing
your accountant and say, look, how are you going with my tax return? He goes, it was going all right, but I had 14 clangers on page 2.
But we're going to get it back on. We're going to get it back on track in the third quarter. We've regrouped.
Yeah, just leave it with me. Leave it with me. That return you were expecting, maybe not quite as big as you thought. Yeah.
There should be more stats in the workplace, don't you think?
Oh, no question. And the people that take the stats, I mean, there's new jobs for everyone.
They try.
Statisticians, jobs and growth. That's what we want.
Jobs and growth. Listen to me, this is where
stats in the workplace.
I can't wait for you to announce you're running for Prime Minister.
Oh,
you might struggle in West Australia and South Australia.
Yeah, and quite frankly, I've got more skeletons than Snowtown.
So North managed to hold on. They didn't give up a lead. Who
did they beat again? This is how much I followed it.
You haven't watched it at all, have you?
No, I didn't see this game. Who did North beat?
Oh, now I'm going to forget. North beat, because I watched this game. North were playing Carlton.
Right, of course, that was yesterday.
And they looked like, North looked like, I think they were like 40 points up in the second quarter.
They went nuts in the first quarter.
Because you had Brisbane playing Collingwood on one channel, and then that was terrible, but then started to get a bit interesting before dropping off again. So then I flicked over to started watching North Carlton, and that looked like it was over. And I thought, this is a terrible day of football. But then Carlton are a perfect example of a not very good team. Like, they've got a few good players, but they've got a lot of youth and all that sort of stuff. But you got to admire that the actual effort is high.
Yeah.
And it's that thing we keep saying, like, if you try all the time, you'll go close against a lot of sides because few teams can put together 4 quarters.
Yeah. And you say Carlton, but they don't quite have the experience or the cattle to maintain that standard or intensity over 4 quarters. But, one thing I'll say about Brendan Bolton, old babyface,
old baby face. I like how you said it like that's like a phrase that's in common usage about him. Oh yeah, The one thing I'll say about old baby face,
like they've called him that since he played in the Preservation Hall Jazz Band in New Orleans.
You said it like that wasn't the first time someone said it.
I think it is. I think I just made that up on the spot. Old baby face Bolton. Sounds like he should have been robbing banks in the Depression.
He may look cute, but he just seemed to kill you as look at you.
I don't even know what I was going to say about him now.
I'm sure it was very That's cracker. I'll never be able to look at Brendan again. I always just thought of him as work experience kid. Brendan Bolton.
It's the same sort of thing.
So what do you like about Brett? What were you saying? What he gets them playing or something?
Well, he's got them playing with that intensity and playing for him.
I did like he was saying, he said after the game, they said, you must be impressed with the comeback, because they were down 40 points and came right back. And he said, I'm not interested in talking about, honourable losses.
Yeah.
Our first quarter was poor and I thought, that sort of attitude, Carlton might actually really be on the way back up eventually.
Yeah.
And it terrified me.
No honourable losses and, there's nothing worse than, effort for 3 quarters and I'm proud of the boys. No, I mean, as I say, old babyface, he's got to play a pretty good brand of footy.
He's a harsh man. Now, Melbourne played the Gold Coast in Alice Springs, which is you just mark that down as a loss.
Well, traditionally Melbourne,
they haven't won in Alice Springs. No. Did you know that?
No,
they've never won.
Never. Well, we usually
which is pretty bad when they play there every week.
Yeah. But they usually play Port Adelaide up there every year.
Yeah, I was smart. Gold Coast are your go-to if you want to win something.
If you want to win on the road, you get Gold Coast involved. And again, this was a game I missed the first half.
Yeah.
And I've got in the car at the start of the third quarter, 18 points down. Gold Coast kicked the first 2 goals. I think, like, here we go. Melbourne are 30 points behind.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll do their little comeback thing and then fall short like we have done for about the last 5 games.
Yeah.
And then got home 10 minutes later and bang. The Gold Coast stopped like they'd been shot and Melbourne just had the ball on a string.
It was bizarre because the first half was as bad it was just typical Melbourne, like a favourite playing in Alice Springs and as favourites.
Yeah.
We should have known they were going to lose, right?
Yeah.
And so it still didn't stop that in that second quarter or when we went into the half, Melbourne were just playing abysmal football, you know. Like they were going into the forward 50 more than the Suns, but they were doing that thing which every fan out there knows when their team does it, which is where they just keep bombing it into the forward line with not passing it, just bombing it in hope
for the best.
And it hasn't worked all game, and you're just getting swept out of their 50 every single time. And you're just sitting there as a fan watching it going, why are they doing this? Like, why don't they try and adjust their tactics? And so I was absolutely furious. So I was off the bandwagon so fast. You know, it was a bit like, because we have trust issues, me and the Melbourne Football Club.
Well, you were getting pretty stuck into them on Twitter.
I was massively getting straight. Hamish McLaughlin brought it up on Game Day on Channel 7 about how I got off and then back on the I almost hurt myself getting back on the bandwagon. I did it so quickly. But I've got real trust issues with Melbourne over the years.
But that's understandable.
Oh, yeah. It's a terrible relationship, you know. So it's
like a cheating girlfriend. You know,
well, I've never had a girlfriend cheating or not. I mean, I'd love for her. I mean, even if you cheat, I mean, that would just show I'm going somewhere.
I've had plenty of cheating girlfriends.
Have you? Gee.
It's hard to maintain that.
Something about you drives them to cheating.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's not all one-way traffic. But,
right,
you know,
right.
But, your lack of trust with Melbourne is understandable over a long period of time.
Well, I did... At the start of the year, I did a bunch of interviews. I interviewed every AFL captain for Channel 7, and they're playing those interviews over the course of the year. And some of them were really good. Some of them were a bit hard because the players just didn't know how to take me at all.
Yeah, I had no idea who you were.
Yeah, so I'd say something that was obviously a joke, and instead of like going along with it, they just sort of went, oh, what do I say here? Or they just laughed nervously, which doesn't always make for the best television.
It's not sort of Mike Willisy standard interview.
But some of the ones that were really good, some of them haven't aired yet and some have, were the ones that sort of got it and everything. But the funniest interaction I had the whole day, which sums up my Melbourne experience, is Nathan Jones comes in and sits down, and he's all dressed in the Melbourne uniform because they're all dressed for media all day, and he says... And they didn't know who they were going to do the interview with. It was sort of not kept secret. They just hadn't been properly told because they were doing lots of interviews that day. And he sat down and goes, oh, you've been harsh on us. And I said, and he said, I unfollowed you for a while.
He unfollowed you?
Yeah, on Twitter he unfollowed me. This is Nathan Jones. And he said, I unfollowed you for a while. I think I followed you back now, but you've been harsh. And I said, oh, mate, it's only because I'm a fan. Like, you know, you must have felt the same over the last 10 years. And he goes, yeah, have actually.
Hang on. You've been harsh on them.
Yeah, I've been harsh on them, but like,
harsh on us,
I said, it's just because I'm a fan and stupidly I live my life through this club. So, you know, that's where I've been harsh. But so I had flashbacks of that one in Alice Springs against the Suns with no Gary Ablett. And we were appalling. And then they just swung around that third quarter. They just slowly got there. And then, enough about Melbourne. More like, how bad are the Suns? The Suns are a terrible football club.
I really feel for, well, I don't really feel, but a modicum of sympathy for Rodney Eade. You can just,
you do or you don't?
I do, because you can just tell he was parachuted in there by the AFL because they needed a coach with experience. Yeah. And you can just tell by the look on his face and at all these press conferences now, he knows he's gone at the end of the year. He's over it. He's lost the players.
He's looked like that since his day one there.
But he looked like that even when he coached Sydney. You know? but
I mean, he worked wonders at Collingwood.
Oh, yeah. And wasn't he at Hawthorn for a while, his old club? Oh, not a senior coach.
No. But I mean, I think Rodney Eade is like the Loch Ness Monster. He's one of the great myths of this idea that Rocket's a great coach is something that anyone I know who's been involved directly with him does not share.
I'll tell you something about Rodney Eade is that he does fulfil our long-standing good bloke policy, though.
Yeah.
Which is one of the reasons
I reckon. Does he even feel that? Because I don't hear many people say he's a great bloke.
I reckon he's a good bloke.
Yeah, I'm not saying he's not, but he's
not that I know him.
Yeah, what? Just got your women's intuition? Why do you think that?
I've met him a few times, and he seemed like a decent enough.
No, but I'm not saying the good bloke policy is someone who everyone bangs on about being a good bloke. It doesn't actually have anything to do with them actually being a good bloke,
That's
right?
true.
And the thing with Rodney Eade is, for all I know, he is a really in reality, not in everyone banging on about it, but in reality, he might be a good bloke. But no, I don't hear people in the media bang on about him being a great bloke often. They more, it was sort of just a strange. I don't know what that club needed. That club, you know what that club does need? It needs an adult, because the board are crazy, and have been since day one when they started saying things like, we're going to win the premiership in 2 years. Yeah. This was like 4 years ago.
And then we're going to win 5 out of the next 7, I think they said.
They sort of like if you put Donald Trump into a footy club, they just, some of the statements they've made have got no connection to reality. I kind of feel like the Gold Coast Suns, where the Giants have played it obviously very smart, and I know they've all got a bunch of advantages and all that sort of stuff. The Giants have been the example of how to get it right on the field, and off the field, I guess. And the Suns have been the perfect example of how not to run an expansion club. They've done everything.
It's just been like a scattergun sort of, no real driving or overarching philosophy or brand for the footy club or what they stand for. It's all just been a bit thrown together,
And it's a shame in some ways, because you look at the talent they do have up there amongst some of those players,
and they've lost a few.
And they're just
Stephen May will be out of there. He's the captain, the co-captain.
Do you think he'll be out of there?
I reckon he'll be out at the end of the year.
Why do you think that?
I just reckon.
Once again, you can feel it in your waters.
Yeah, I can just tell. No,
I wouldn't be surprised either.
He's a great player.
But Tom Lynch has signed for a long time, and he's like the best forward almost in the comp, and he's wasted up on the Gold Coast.
But Stephen May's a big brute of a defender.
Oh, everyone will want him.
And everybody will want him, and they'll throw large amounts of money at him, and I reckon he'll go at the end of the year.
Yeah.
I hope Melbourne get him. I'd like to see Melbourne get Stephen May.
Well, I mean, that's that thing. You'd always like good players to go to your team.
I'd like Nat Fyfe as well. Maybe Dustin Martin.
I like that
Aaron
one.
Sandilands.
I like that one, which we should start to do, which is when people come up with potential trades for their own teams, and they go, you know what we should do? We should trade away our 3 terrible players that no one will ever want for that superstar. Yeah. Why don't they
should do that?
Yeah. Why don't we just get, why don't we just do that? So anyway, that's like, I look, they've talked about Hawthorn having a heap of money and might be going to have a go at him.
You never write Hawthorn off. There might be some method in their madness. Who knows? But the jury's still out on Jager O'Meara, because you just can't get on the park.
His knee's out on him, not a jury.
He's got his leg in this room and his knee in the other.
His problem is he's got a knee of an 80-year-old
in a 21-year-old's body.
Was he 23 or something?
Yeah,
he's not old, but he's, if you start missing all those games at that point in time. But I was just really deeply unimpressed by the Gold Coast. They had that game basically, and they just started turning it over. I mean, Melbourne were not great. They were terrible in that first half, and then once they started to put the pressure on, Gold Coast just started turning it over to them the whole time.
And the last quarter was just a training drill.
Yeah,
somebody, I think it was Racetrack Ralphie, put on Twitter that the Gold Coast, their jumpers appropriately was the same colour as witches' hats. Because that's how they were playing that last quarter.
They were terrible.
They were awful.
Now, moving on to cricket. Oh, sorry, we do have a question here. Herbert Hodgson's wrote in, the Demons form has me confused. Do I still book the ski chalet for July and Noosa for September or not?
Oh,
I got the answer here. If you're a Melbourne supporter, you've already booked those, but you're also quite happy to burn the price of them to go into the footy if we start being good.
That's right. If you've got your beachfront little, Ponderosa in Noosa already booked
you're not
for
booking,
September.
This idea you're booking a chalet. Why do you book something you own?
Yeah, I know the one, but the ones on Hastings Street are hard to get. But if you've already,
really? I own 4. Melbourne supporters aren't booking anything.
No. Look, Herbert, just stay home and be miserable like the rest of us.
You just take the chopper up after the game. It's not hard. Now, getting to cricket, which is still happening at the moment. We haven't quite yet got to... The one thing that has happened this week is Cricket Australia keep trying to go around the Players' Union straight to the players.
That's not going well.
No, the players are sticking fat with the union at the moment.
And we've got, about four and a bit weeks until the lockout starts. Yeah. Which I can't wait for, quite frankly.
Oh, it's just a drama we're desperate for. We were saying earlier before we started recording that it's been an alarming lack of scandals this year, just generally in sport. I'm trying to think of... It's been little ones that are along the way. But
little minor ones, but nothing big. I mean...
A cricket strike would definitely...
A cricket strike, I don't know whether you'd call it a scandal, but it's a great news story. If the entire Australian cricket team goes on strike, that's just grist to the mill.
Huge. John Buchanan, former Australian cricket coach and a divisive character amongst some people.
Well loved by Shane Warne.
Shane Warne hates his guts. But he also has some negatives towards him. John Buchanan, he's unveiled, it's called a radical plan to overhaul the sport. Now, I love when people who aren't running sports come out with these because you know what they do? They come up with a plan, and because they're not running the sport, it's not based in reality. But so it's just their own crazy thoughts out there.
And whenever it's the phrase radical plan, but the only one recent times, a bit like this by people who are running the sport, is Gillon McLachlan with his 17/5 fixture conferences thing.
I know. He's got to stop going on big footy.
It was huge news 10 days ago. God, suspiciously quiet on that radical plan.
That one got shot down, but the wild card round got...
Still a bit of traction.
That did not get received well by anyone who actually loves the game.
No.
And doesn't stand to benefit from a financial gain of it being in place.
So what does John Buchanan... How does his radical plan...
He's come out with a 7-point plan straight away.
So is this a 5-year plan or just a 7-point plan?
It's just a 7-point plan. Yeah, you either have to go time or amount of dot points.
Yes.
I would have gone with a 43 dot point plan.
Yeah.
And then just seen how long people kept reading. Each point more crazy
Something
than the
that looks good on a spreadsheet.
Yeah. Oh, your PowerPoint deck maybe? Yeah. Maybe a bit of a waterfall slide or something just to make it really look like I know what I'm talking about. Anyway, he's got a 7-point plan which he wants Cricket Australia and the Australian Cricketers Association to embrace in a bid to end the pay dispute.
Oh, right.
So he's come in as the peacemaker.
The mediator that nobody wants.
Actually, Buchanan, with this plan, I'm gonna make a bold prediction. He's going to do what no one else has done and unite Cricket Australia and the Australian Cricketers Association in both thinking his plan is stupid.
both thinking he's nuts.
Yeah, he's finally united them on one issue. Some common ground. We both think this is a dumb idea. So he says it's time for a major rethink of Australia's international and domestic campaigns, beginning with the induction of only 3 tests a summer, to be held mid-November to mid-December. That would mean for him, in his plan, that they would scrap the Boxing Day and New Year's Day test matches.
Right, Melbourne and Sydney. Like that's going to happen.
Which are the most lucrative ones and have the highest attendance of the year. So that's sort of like your first... that's sort of like your first plan of, taking over the AFL is to ban holding the ball, like touching the ball with your hands or something. Yeah, it's such a crazy non-starter before you even start on your point. If that's your point 1, point 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 do not matter.
It's like if you're at Channel 9 and you're put in charge of running The Voice and you go, tell you what we're going to do. If we just get rid of them singers...
We'll get rid of those spinning chairs, which is the only reason anyone watches The Voice.
All these people who think they can sing. Now we've got a show.
It's just madness that you would think that anyone is going to. I mean, and not just Cricket Australia and the Australian Cricket Association. Any cricket fan, the idea of getting rid of the Boxing Day Test, and even the New Year's Day Test. I mean, you're hungover on both those days.
Yeah, of course you are.
That's why you want to watch cricket.
And being there, I've done both of these tests at various times, and they're just. Forget the money side of it and all that. They are fixtures in the Australian calendar. They're part of the Australian fabric and the way of life. The Boxing Day Test and the New Year's Test in Sydney. And so his plan is to have 3 tests earlier.
Yes.
So what happens around Christmas?
He says that the number of test matches will make them more valuable to attend. Particularly if the new form of Test cricket, pink ball tests increase in popularity.
Oh, the night games, yeah.
And then he's saying that the touring teams can then go and tour other places, and that more players will be available for the domestic season because everyone loves to go watch a Sheffield Shield game.
Oh yeah, you see those games at the MCG, and there's more people in the Channel 9 crew than spectators.
I tell you what, one of the great...
it's not going to change just because a couple of the test players are playing.
One of the great things to do that a lot of people know you can really, is you go to a Sheffield Shield game for a test.
Yeah.
Of Sheffield Shield are test, of course. But you go to that, if you're an MCC member...
Yep.
If you go to that... they've got a few of the bars. You go to the Frank Grace Smith bar.
Yes.
On a day. No one is in there.
Yep.
You've got it all to yourself. You can actually move these leather chairs up to the windows and sit there. And because the bartender's got nothing to do, he or she will just come over every now and go, another round, boys?
Yeah.
I've done that several times and watch the whole day cricket. And it's just like you've got the MCG to yourself.
You give them a wave and they bring you a plate of pies.
That's right. It's like terrific. It's like having your own corporate box.
Yeah, and if you don't want to watch the game through the glass, the bullring bar downstairs is just as good, completely empty. You've got 25 screens to watch it on, and about six people behind the bar. Look,
Is it say something about us both that we both really enjoy a lack of people?
I actually think John Buchanan's radical
really
plan has some merit.
So anyway, that's we're having a lot of terrible ideas this year. People are suggesting in sport, and that's really added to them, I think.
Yeah, there's nothing.
What a non-starter of an idea. Before I read it, going, "Oh, this could be interesting," and it's just like, no, I'll get rid of the Boxing Day Test.
That should have been his 0.7, not his 0.1.
Yeah, So anyway, that's gonna. I'm just looking forward to Shane Warne responding to that one.
You imagine Warnie going, look, John and I have had our differences over the year, but I think he's right on the money when he says get rid of the Boxing Day test.
Scrap the popular test.
Yes.
That's the best way to start.
Where they get 85,000 people there on Boxing Day. Yeah, we'll get rid of that.
Overnight, we had Bernard Tomic knocked out of the French Open in the first round. Now, just showing you that Tomic can do it all, he actually lost to a good player.
Did he?
He lost to the number 7 in the world.
Oh, that's not so bad.
So that's not so bad. He had a competitive first set, 6-4, but then he lost 6-0, 6-2, once again showing that fighting spirit that Tomic does.
That spirit of the Anzac that Tomic is so
is renowned for. Yeah. And he said he's already focusing on Wimbledon.
To be fair to Bernie, which we are. Do we have to be fair to Bernie?
There's no contractual arrangement where you have to be fair to Bernie.
No, to Bernie or anyone else. He doesn't like the clay.
No.
And he's no good on it.
I don't think he liked tennis. I don't know if the clay is the big issue.
Doesn't matter what the surface is. You think he's just the game itself leaves him a bit cold these days.
I can understand where Tomic is in the position. He's basically said this before. He knows the work it would take to get him to be a top 5 or 10 player, right? And he's already making millions of dollars. So he's like the extra effort. And it's like I think we'd all be a bit like this. If you just found you were naturally really talented at something, and people have this happen all the time, it's just in areas of life that aren't well known or glamorous or, but, you think someone who makes a living like, running a call centre because they happen to be really good at it, no one set out to do that. It just happened they were good at it, and so they get paid well to do it, so they do it. And Tomic is kind of more like the rest of us in that the thing he happens to be good at can earn him a lot of money.
Sport.
It just happens to be high profile. But there's a ton of us out there that are working in jobs that you go,
not us, but
we tried and we weren't good at anything.
That's what
we're not even good at this. So. But you know what I mean? Like, there's people out there who run. You think of all the jobs there are, like in logistics, in finance, in a lot of these
medicine.
people. A lot of these people, these aren't jobs that are. Something that people go, I just all my life wanted to, do this, but to do this job. I didn't want to work in logistics all my life. I just ended up doing it, getting it as a job, finding out I was actually pretty good at it, and now I can make I now do well in it, and so I keep doing it. And I reckon Tomic is more like that than anyone else. I'm not saying that to excuse him for everything, but that's what he's like.
He doesn't love the game, and he's obviously over it to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Having said that, he's so unpredictable. He could come out and reach a semi-final at Wimbledon. He might just get on a roll.
Unlike people like, you look at someone like Leighton Hewitt, who obviously just not only loved the game but loved competing.
Yeah.
Just all he wanted to do in life was compete and try and beat someone, and would walk over broken glass to do so.
I've said this before. The one thing about Leighton Hewitt is that, love him or hate him, even if he was 5...
The people love him.
Oh, plenty did. But he had to work at it. But even if he's 5-1 down in the fifth set, you'd still think he can get out of jail here. He will probably win this match.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas Bernie doesn't even get to the fifth set, generally.
No.
When he's not on.
Well, if it's not going well for Bernie, he doesn't. He kind of ready to go. Yeah. Speaking of tennis players, it's been a good week for tennis. Margaret Court came out this week. It says here she's described as Australian tennis great and Christian pastor, Margaret Court. She's publicly announced she will stop using Qantas where possible in protest at the airline's promotion of same-sex marriage.
Caused a hell of a stink, this.
Oh, yeah. She said, I am disappointed that Qantas has become an active promoter for same-sex marriage. She said in a letter that was published in the Western Australian newspaper. She said, I believe that marriage is a union between a man and a woman, as stated in the Bible. Your statement leaves me no option but to use other airlines where possible for my extensive travelling, which is a bit of a problem for her because Virgin also supports gay marriage.
Yes.
And so she's going to be doing a lot of walking. Now, the thing I found interesting about this is a bunch of things. One, I mean, it's not new news that Margaret Court is an awful person.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got a fair body of evidence.
She's been nasty for years.
She was. This is where, like, a lot of people got it. Like, a lot of people on Twitter went into this and defended her right to say everything and all this sort of stuff. And they did it around the topic of gay marriage. But marriage equality. But she also was pro South Africa when the apartheid ban came in and said they've got things right how they organise things in South Africa. That's what she actually said in the paper. Like, so it's not. So don't get fixated just on the. Do not don't underestimate Margaret Court's ability to be awful across a range of subjects.
Which goes back to one of our original things, is that just because you're good at sport doesn't mean you have to be a nice person, or vice versa.
Yeah.
And as you say, old Margaret, she's pretty much stuck in her ways now. And look, to be honest, if you hearing it's because it's as written in the Bible. I mean, really?
Yeah. Well, she's a piece of property if you go off to her husband. If you go off that, I mean, seriously, you're on a slippery slope if that's your. The thing I found amazing about this, a bunch of people sort of kind of said, "Oh, I can't believe everyone's attacking her." Well, hang on. She wrote a letter to the paper. Like, it's not like she was sitting at home minding her own business. She wrote a public letter to the paper, protest. Yeah. So she wanted the attention. Now, you can't then get upset when people then point out. She's got a right to say that. I get all those right. Everyone loves right to freedom unless, it offends them. Then they get upset. But, I mean, God, there's 2017. And the fact is, not to get too serious for a second, but it's a fair point that attitudes like hers result in a lot of young people committing suicide. So it's not like what she's saying is like, oh, everyone's allowed to have an opinion, and it's not like this is no harm, no foul. Like you just don't agree with her. It's like it has serious consequences when people like her express these views to the community. So she can't then just act like, I'm surprised everyone's got all angry about this and this is
exactly.
The fact she turns around and goes, I'm being persecuted.
Yeah, if you're going to come out and make, whether it's an inflammatory comments, or comments that are going to upset a lot of people, you cannot be surprised if they come out swinging at you. This is where it all gets that grey area too that I don't like is, if somebody's mildly offended about something, then the other person has to be shut down. But the whole thing's just gone on a bit too far. But
this isn't a borderline. I mean, she's got a track record of coming out and saying all this stuff and being, she's like, she's full on about it. She's not like, look, I don't have... It's you can't go out with a comment like this and you start the debate.
Yeah.
She started the debate. She wrote the thing to the paper, We know her agenda.
If you start the blue, you've got to be prepared to finish it.
I just don't understand why she would even, why would she even care? How does it affect her life in the slightest?
Exactly. Forgetting Margaret Court for a minute, that's my whole thing about marriage equality from day one. I mean, who cares?
Yeah.
I mean, two ferrets can get married as far as I'm concerned.
Well, in fact, you've arranged a few of those marriages.
You know the hardest thing about ferret marriage? Finding a ferret celebrant.
I don't know. We've gone from the serious to a... you would know. Is that really the hardest bit?
Sometimes. Then you got to get a ferret DJ.
I went to a wedding once of a friend, and they had Greg Evans from Perfect Match. He's a celebrant, and he did their wedding.
I've read that he is, and he. I think he tried to get the original Dexter robot, to take along as a prop,
right? Yeah.
Because. A lot of people would think that was pretty funny.
Yeah, it'd be great.
Until 10 years down the track, you look at the wedding video. But old Dexter's in a TV museum and he couldn't get his hands on it. But Greg Evans, he does too. And you know who else does? Who's a marriage celebrant? Mike Larkin, the Channel 10 weatherman.
Mike Larkin, right?
Yeah,
okay,
you can get him. And he comes up and he does a couple of dad jokes about the weather and then marries you.
Oh. Well, the thing about Greg Evans is at the end at the ceremony. Yeah. He said, "You can now kiss the bride," and like that all happened. And the funny, and then he said at the end. Turns and says, well, that ends our ceremony. And then everyone goes off to the reception. But he says, I think if Dexter was here, he'd have said this was a perfect match. And that was the end of the comedy, So it was kind of a great wedding because that was the thing. But it was just cheese at the highest level. And so Margaret Court's a pastor, so she can probably marry you too if you want. I don't know if she'd marry a ferret.
I don't know if she does ferrets. She's not...
Probably not. She's probably write a nasty letter to you, Serge.
She would find a quote out of the Bible that says,
a ferret shall not lay with ferrets.
or proper union between male and female ferrets.
I think she'd marry ferrets, but she wouldn't let a man marry a ferret. Which is probably where her and I agree with each other.
Whereas I would.
I found common ground with her. Sean wrote in, is Margaret Court hoping Ansett make a comeback? She'll need to.
Well, I'll tell you what. I reckon old Sir Reg Ansett. I don't think he would have been a big. I think he would have been on Margaret's side.
Do you?
Yeah, because I have a pretty fair idea that when Ansett was. Or when he still owned Ansett, that he was very big on the straight flight attendants.
Oh, really?
Yes, yeah. He was. Yeah.
Oh.
No gay flight attendants on
Really?
Ansett. Yeah, no. He made a big thing about that.
Gee.
But the stupid thing about it was only after someone pointed out to him that there's in the flight attendant, the male flight attendant community, there seemed to be,
a disproportionate
number of gay men were flight attendants. And he's gone, what? Not on Ansett. Got to get rid of them poofters off Ansett. I know a guy who was on the board had answered at the time, and he said, old Reg was flabbergasted at this, and we had to gently point out to him that they're already employed. You can't just sack them for being gay. You know?
So not only was he sort of an intolerant bastard, he also was fairly oblivious to how the world worked.
Yeah, pretty much. He was as rich as God, but didn't really know.
Rodders wrote in, what are Rod Laver's views on marriage equality?
Why hasn't someone rung Rod Laver and asked him?
Why hasn't someone rung Dawn Fraser? If you want,
I think they have.
If you want to kick the can down the road on this story,
they rung old Dawny just the other day, and she came out. She gave Margaret a bit of a clip.
Did she?
Yeah.
Oh, she's usually the one. Well, she's more racist.
Yeah.
She prefers racism. Oh God, all our old sports. They're all super. You never want to meet your heroes, Serge.
No, you don't.
Listeners' questions we're getting onto now. Harrison Rennick wrote in, after Richo's ludicrous solution to the ball up. Now, did you hear Matthew Richardson?
No.
So Matthew Richardson, there's been a bit of So the funny thing is,
get rid of the bounce.
Ready to get rid of the centre bounce. There's been a lot of talk about this. Now, there's been talk going back a couple of years now because a lot of the umpires are saying this leads to long-term back injuries. Now, then we had a female umpire this last week have trouble bouncing, which was mainly the problem of Etihad Stadium's soft centre circle. Yeah. But anyway, and so suddenly this has become a women's issue in the mind of some. I think Campbell Brown today came out and said it's banning the bounce is political correctness gone mad. Even though all the blokes want it gone more than before, the female umpire said nothing about the whole thing, but it's suddenly political correctness gone mad.
See, on some subjects, you can argue that political correctness gone mad line on some subjects, but bouncing the ball in the middle is probably not one of them, I would have thought.
The political correctness gone mad, the problem I always have with it is 9 times out of 10 when someone says it and you say, tell me what you wanted to say and where you felt it was like you weren't able to. And 9 times out of 10, it's just a racist or sexist comment. Like, it's not actually like political correctness gone mad. There are examples, but they're actually rarer than everyone thinks. It's like, people should say, substitute political correctness gone mad to, I can't say horrible things I want to say. Yeah. Because people get upset.
Yeah.
That's basically the way it works. But anyway, Matthew Richardson on Friday or Thursday night, I can't remember what it was, he said his solution is they should hire people as professional specialists to bounce the ball. They would come out, bounce the ball, and then
what? Back out of the stoppage,
and then leave the ground until the next one.
It's not busy enough already out there.
It's just mad. It's so mad. It's another jobs employment scheme.
It is, but what do they? Do they come out in a clown outfit or?
I don't know. It makes no sense to me.
Richo.
So Harrison Rennick's written in, after Richo's ludicrous solution to the ball up, how about an even more ludicrous solution? How do you feel about the centre bounce being done by a buried cannon?
I like the idea.
I thought you would. Although you don't want the buried cannon to go off at the wrong moment and shoot a player into the Etihad dome roof.
Not while Nat Fyfe's just strolling across the centre circle. Bang!
Just splat onto the Etihad roof. That's not what you want.
Hey, you'd have to be careful with your levels of gunpowder or dynamite. Right. I like the idea of...
We can't even get a T-shirt cannon into a AFL stadium. The other option is to have a drone drop a ball above every centre bounce.
Gee, that's not a bad idea.
And you could get some advertising for the drone and AFL would be very happy.
And there'd be another angle of the coverage from the little...
I've got to say, I could not care at all if they just went, we throw the ball up.
Couldn't care less.
Couldn't be, it has no impact on the actual game. Like, it's all, it's all very well for but the actual game will not change at all.
Not an iota, because it's, what is annoying.
Except some of the bad bounces will go.
That's what I'm saying. The only thing that is annoying is a bad bounce where the umpire calls it back and then throws it up. You go, oh, mate, if you'd done that in the first place, the game would be on by now.
Yeah. You're wasting my precious moments on
don't
earth.
waste my time.
Josh Eddy wrote in, with Brent Harvey getting 54 touches and scoring 9 goals, 5 behinds. This was in a local suburban game.
North Heidelberg he plays for.
Really? Who are they playing?
I think Brisbane.
Josh says, will Collingwood offer him a 3 or 4 year contract? Spot on there, I think, Josh.
Or do you think Boomer Harvey will now write another banner about himself next week?
Probably. Oh, still selfish.
Yeah. 54 touches, 14 scoring shots.
Gee, that's quite impressive. It just shows you the drop off though from AFL to those leagues.
Yeah, you got a bloke who's 43 and he's getting 54 touches, and they would have been 53 kicks and
Plus,
one handball.
Boomer's not the kind of guy that he goes, I've retired now, so I'll just have a bit of fun playing.
Yeah,
I bet he's still training and playing like.
Oh, and it'd be every game be like his last.
Yeah,
and you got to admire that to a degree.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah. North Island, but one. I don't know how much he gets paid out there.
Sean wrote in, have you and Serge been approached by ABC2 to host the next Liverpool game?
There's a poisoned chalice.
How is that still going on? Like, I saw complaints about it as recently as yesterday on Sunday. This is for people that don't know. Liverpool played last week against Sydney FC in an exhibition, and there was a half-hour intro done by Jules Schiller and Tegan Higginbotham and a few, and it got caned by the soccer community because it was seen as taking the fun out of it, and it sounded like it didn't go very well. Like
apparently,
it was a bit rushed, and even Jules Schiller has said that.
Technically, it was all over the joint, and it wasn't. It wasn't great. Even Jules and whoever the others involved said, look, it
didn't work. We tried something new, didn't work.
This ain't going to be winning a Logie
but
next year.
They're acting like it was. It's ruined the sport forever.
Yeah.
And it's a half hour. I mean, we have to put up with the bounce and the footy show every week. We go for hours and we just move on with our lives.
Exactly my point. This is where sometimes, and I know this is a very broad generalisation, but the soccer community does get up itself a bit sometimes. It's a bit too bloody serious about the whole thing. We love soccer, we love international football. It's great to have teams like Liverpool come out here. Even if it's a half-baked Liverpool team, the fans get to see them. There is no downside to it. You get a full stadium, people go to see it. They sing You'll Never Walk Alone, and everyone feels good about themselves. So there's no downside to the game or what's happened. And if they had a half-hour thing on ABC2, mind you, so nobody was supposed to be watching it anyway.
No, people watched this saw more of it because everyone complained. They went and watched bits of it online.
Oh, I was about to say there's more hits on YouTube of this than they were actually watching on the night. So, get over it a bit. Okay, it was a crap half hour, but, the show goes on.
Yeah, I know.
But having said that, if they do approach us, we'll take it on. We'll take it off their hands next time.
Oh, can you imagine us doing
it? More than helpful.
That would.
They reckon the Jules Schiller one was a schmozzle.
They reckon they're angry now. Steve Gavorko wrote in, can someone please explain to me what slingshot footy is? Are you and Serge advocates of slingshot podcasting? Well, slingshot footy is just where...
What is it?
Well, it's just where they rebound off the half back.
Yeah.
It basically means we regularly lose centre bounces, but our defence is okay. Yeah,
it's like when the ball stops on the half back line, like when you pull a slingshot back and then bang, you let it go.
But it's
another one of these stupid new phrases that's crept into the commentary.
An underground handball.
Yeah.
Which doesn't go underground.
Or a quarterback. Somebody's playing the quarterback role.
Well, don't you think the game would actually be a bit improved if we introduced slingshots?
Well, see, I've always loved the slingshot. See, in my day it was called a Shanghai.
Right.
But now that name's
political correctness gone mad, Serge. So, you probably can't even shoot a slingshot at people anymore.
Oh, if you can't shoot a bloody T-shirt, maybe we could...
T-shirt slingshot?
T-shirt slingshot.
If you haven't taken a kid's eye out with a slingshot as a kid, you've never lived.
See, I got into trouble at school once for this, was you used to make... You'd have your own slingshot. You'd bend a wire coat hanger, and then get a couple of heavy-duty rubber bands.
Right.
There's your...
Listening at home, kids, take notes.
Take notes, and if you want to have a little bit of plastic in the middle for your projectile,
like to rest the rock on or the marble or whatever. Yeah,
but that's not.
What would you fire from them?
Well, this is the thing. If you just use hardcore rubber bands on your metal sort of frame, you would get a bit of paper and roll it up and roll it up and roll it up into a very solid little pallet, which you could bend.
Right.
And then you could put each side of the pallet outside the rubber bands, and you pull it back, and bang, Jesus, it would go. And I got a kid.
So just bits of paper.
Yeah, but bits of paper folded up so they become really solid little pallets. And I got a kid on the bus in the eye once from about 15 seats back.
Right.
And
what was this last week?
Yeah, they were school kids.
Yeah.
I was just on the way to Southland.
And what happened?
I got off at the next stop.
So there's a guy out there wandering around with one eye that hates you.
Yeah, some kid.
And you're oblivious to it.
But, I love
That's a feel-good story.
So, I do love a good slingshot.
Right.
Or a good Shanghai.
Well, there you go, Steve.
But even that name Shanghai has now been hijacked by David Koch.
So there you go, Steve. You probably got more conversation out of that question than you thought.
Than you probably thought.
Jenny Brandy wrote in, do you think the Lions have a chance against the bye next week?
Not the way they've been playing. They'll struggle.
It could be touch and go. I hate the bye weeks.
Yeah.
Rodney Garner raises a good point about them, though. With the bye rounds about to begin, will getting 3 in the tipping finally look respectable?
Yeah, you can probably get away with it this week, Rod. Yeah.
It has been. I think I did okay this week. Not great, but not terrible. But
it's just been a shocking season for tipping.
I picked the Giants. I was pretty happy they got up.
Yeah.
And I tipped Melbourne, surprisingly, which was going against every fibre in my body.
Yeah.
So I have to go back and look what I got. I don't actually know what I got. I've had some terrible weeks, though. Yeah. I mean, everyone has, but...
Yeah, I got one a couple of weeks ago.
I'm glad I named my guide to the round the unhelpful guide, because it certainly hasn't been helpful. Andrew Moran wrote in, my kids took over my pathetic tipping and got a 7. Their ages are 7 and 5. Should they do the rest of the season?
No question, Andrew. Just handball it straight to them. They got the score on the board.
Oh, definitely. Nathan Furphy wrote in, my Kiwi wife is beating me in the footy tips. Any advice? Get a new wife?
Yeah, I was about to say. I was going
to give it to the kids.
I was going to be politically incorrect then, but I won't be.
Gavin McDonald wrote, has Cricket Australia made contact with Bob Simpson to lead Australia again if the Test cricketers go to strike?
See, this isn't a bad idea, and I just looked up Bob Simpson before. He's 81.
Right.
Which I think he could still open the batting against.
Well, that's who they got last time. There was all the players left for World Series cricket.
But Bob was only in his early 50s.
He'd semi-retired. He had retired, basically.
He'd retired years before.
When that happened.
But he sort of got away with it. 81, he might be pushing it slightly.
You think?
Against, Flintoff and these guys.
It is just England.
Yeah, I know.
Still in with a chance.
He wouldn't wear a helmet, though. No. Didn't wear him in his day.
No. Graham Jenkins wrote in, what is the meaning of life?
Ooh. Graham, you've
gone deep on a Sunday night. I think Graham had a few sherries when he wrote that one.
I think Graham, he sort of had a long day in front of the fire and a few bottles of red. But what is the meaning of life? We'll get back to you on that one,
There is
Graham.
no meaning to life, is my view. That's why we find humour in everything, because it's all sort of silly.
Well, when ferrets get married, can get married, we're the wrong people to ask.
I never knew you were so keen on marrying ferrets, but there you go. You learn something about you every podcast. Something new. Not necessarily something new and disturbing.
Ferret marriage and assaulting children with a slingshot.
I wonder why we never get picked up by mainstream media. Now, have you got a winner of a T-shirt? You can pick it this week.
All right. It's a simple question, but I quite like it. Jenny Brandy, she said, do you think the Lions have a chance against the bye next week?
Well done, Jenny. We'll be in contact. You'll have a Titus and Sergio variety hour T-shirt winging its way to you.
Yep. Wear it with pride or wash the car with it.
You can wash the car with pride. So there you go. And thanks again to our supporters. If you want to become a supporter, just go to titusandsergio.com. There's a supporter tab there, and you can help us churn out this ridiculous nonsense. We should also add thank you to everyone who goes onto iTunes and rates us.
Yeah, we got some good comments last week.
That not only helps the word get out, but those comments are the one thing that are keeping Serge going, I know. He reads them when the darkness comes.
At my darkest moments, I just click on the iTunes store.
Just to boost your confidence. So leave him a nice message. Someone said that you were doing a great in-character impression of a VFL-bound, grumpy Melbourneite. Yeah. And I'm like, it's not much of a... It's
not that much of a stretch.
He stays in character even when the mic goes off.
Yeah, they did suggest it was performance acting, a tour de force, but it's actually not that far from the truth.
We'll see you on Thursday.
See you then.